Welcome back to the Railway Tour Manager YouTube channel. And today we'll be stepping back in time as we take an exotic trip on the Manx Electric Railway, all the way from Ramsey to Douglas. It's Saturday the 25th of April 2026 and an absolutely stunning day today for you to enjoy and marvel at the scenery that you're just about to see. So join me today on this journey. Our story begins in the 1880s, when the Isle of Man was gripped by a fever. Not a malicious one, but a benign one in the form of ever-increasing amounts of tourism. Douglas Bay in its sweeping crescent shoreline soon began to capitalise on this tourism, with hotels and boarding houses springing up almost overnight in a quest to cater for the almost insatiable demands from the visitors to the island. Two prominent businessmen, Alexander Bruce, a Glaswegian banker, and Frederick Saunderson, a civil engineer, hatched a plan to develop the House Drake estate to the north of Douglas by building a large housing development and pleasure grounds. Plans were drawn in 1889, submitted to the Time Board, that's the Manx Parliament, and approved in 1892. The estate was to be purchased in Saunderson's name, and he was backed in this venture by one Alfred Jones Lusty, a retired London merchant who lived on the House Drake estate. The approval was given on a preliminary basis with the condition that a road must be constructed to give access, and that required a sea wall to be constructed from Strathallan across Portivada Creek, which would in turn allow the land behind to be reclaimed. Final approval was only given with the condition that the road was to be accompanied with a tramway to be operated by animal, steam, electric or any other power. This condition can rightly be called the birth pains of the Manx Electric Railway. With all the legalities settled, the objective became clear: to construct a road and railway from Strathallan to the end of the Housestrake estate above Groundhall. Bit below, the next estate was owned by a R.M. Broadbent, who was planning to market the Groundhall Glen as a tourist attraction, with an additional hotel. Little time was spent obtaining the necessary land to bring the railway to the entrance. Bruce, Saunderson and Lusty then formed themselves into the Douglas Bay Estate Limited, with the sole registered intent of building a road and a railway as far as Groundhall, and the construction of an electric plant behind the seawall at Portivada. It was the decision of Bruce to find the best advice for the construction of an electric railway, and they were eventually referred to Dr. Edward Hopkinson, a partner in the group Mather and Platt of Salford. He had previously worked on the City and South London Railway. Work began in spring 1893, and the attention being focused mostly on the railway rather than the road, other than keeping it level with the track and separating it. The track arrived in May, allowing for a single line which was laid on the seaward side, allowing for eventual doubling if needed. The gauge of 3 foot, which is 914 millimeters, had already been agreed as the standard after the success of the Isle of Man Railway's 3-foot lines from Douglas. The depot was constructed at Portivada, a 3-track 9-car building containing inspection pits with adjoining workshop and boiler houses equipped with a 60-foot chimney. It took the name of Derby Castle, a private dwelling from the early part of the 1800s and from the theatre and pleasure grounds being constructed at the same time as the railway. By the start of August, 3 unvestibuled saloon cars, numbers 1 to number 3, and 6 open trailers, at the time numbers 11 to number 16, which are now 49 to 54, had been delivered by G.F. Milnes and Company of Birkenhead. The cars were equipped with bow collectors at each end. Teething troubles delayed the start of operations, the first car not reaching ground until the 26th of August. Free rides are available for the public, who were eager to try out the new experience. On September 7, 1893, the regular service was started. It continued for 17 days until the 28th, and it was closed for winter. During this time, 20,000 passengers were carried at the minimum fare of threepence. So this was the honourable beginnings of the Manx Electric Railway. Bruce wanted to reach Laxey, and by March 1893 he was seeking approval from the Manx government. Saunderson, thinking ahead, had planned the railway and road as far as Halfway House. The land was now owned by the Douglas Bay Estate and Groudle Glen Company, a new operations committee. The Douglas and Laxey Coast Electric Railway Company was formed at the same time, with a view to operating between Douglas and Laxey. They would take over the land as far as Halfway House until the tramway's completion, leaving the Douglas Bay Estate Company to develop Housestraight Park, which was later to become the Housestraight Holiday Camp. The Manx government's approval was granted in November 1893, but with certain conditions. The maximum gradient would be no more than 1 in 20, the maximum speed 8 miles per hour during road and rail running, and 6 miles per hour at crossing points. Goods, freight and mail were also asked to be carried at a fixed rate, and finally it gave the company compulsory purchase powers for land along the approved route. The construction recommenced in February 1894, with the second line to Groudle being finished by May. It necessitated a 3-span viaduct being built to take the rail and road over the Groudle River. The line was also constructed as far as Laxey, and a terminal was built parallel to today's Laxey car sheds. And with all this increase in traffic and popularity, a further shed was constructed at Derby Castle for 8 cars and trailers. And to take the extra traction current required, a third boiler, engine and feeder line were also installed. More cars arrived. These were called the tunnel cars, and they were all fitted with the Hopkinson improved bow collectors. In addition, 6 more trailers also arrived from G.F. Milnes, numbered from 17 to 22. The railway inspections took place on the 27th of July 1894, and the formal opening took place the following afternoon, all of Laxey turning out for the ceremony. It was definitely going to put Laxey on the map, with Glen Gardens developed as a major attraction, and the magnificent Lady Isabella still turning to this very day, attracting thousands during the summer. Although the new motors and trailers bore the Douglas and Laxey Coast Electric Tramway Company logo, the company had changed its name to the Isle of Man Tramways and the Electric Power Company Limited after purchasing the horse trams along Douglas Promenade. And here we can see a very rare ticket bearing that title of the Isle of Man Tramways and the Electric Power Company Limited, and the writing was certainly on the wall because it says in liquidation. This is a ticket from before 1900, and as it is to Ramsey, it could only be issued in the previous 12 months or so, making it very rare. With the increasing patronage on the railways, 2 new car sheds were added at Derby Castle to house 4 new cars which arrived in 1895 and 15 trailers. Thoughts now turned to expansion and extensions. The goal of reaching Ramsey had been made less of a dream when in May 1897 the Time Ward passed the Extension to Ramsey Act. Construction began in August, but officially didn't start till November that same year. In the winter of 1897, 2 construction gangs began the task of linking Laxey with Ramsey. One gang worked south of Ballure using the Manx Northern Railway locomotive No. 1, appropriately named Ramsey. The second gang worked north from Laxey using the Isle of Man Railway's locomotive No. 2 Derby, together with their newly purchased locomotive an 040T No. 713. By the spring of 1898, the line had been extended beyond the original terminus in Laxey, across the Glenroy River by an impressive curved viaduct to where the current station could be found. In anticipation of the opening, 9 open crossbench cars were ordered from G.F. Milnes. By July 1898, the line had reached Ballure, with the official opening taking place on August the 2nd. The line closed for the season on 24th of October 1898, which allowed the railway to continue the extension to Ramsey without the inconvenience of having to run a railway for the benefit of the public. period of turmoil and uncertainty existed at the turn of the new century, as debts were mounting, so much so that the bank that underwrote the loan foreclosed on it, causing the collapse of the bank the railway owed the money to. Bruce was held in the most part to be responsible. Warrants were duly issued, and sadly he died in September 1900. Liquidation was imposed and various avenues of sale explored after orders were made for the sale of the railway company and its assets. A bid for the line was received in January 1902 for £250,000 from the merchant banker, the deal being agreed and finalised by September, and so, on the 1st of November 1902, the Manx Electric Railway Company was incorporated. War years were slack times for the Manx Electric Railway, with passenger numbers falling significantly. A fire in 1917 destroyed the original Laxey refreshment rooms, and they were not rebuilt. 1919 saw passengers returning in great numbers, bolstering the finances of the railway. The number of visitors continued to rise into the 1920s. Laxey seems to be a very unlucky place. In April 1930, a large fire took hold in Laxey car shed, destroying 4 cars, 7 trailers and 3 tower wagons, all thought to be caused by discarded cigarette. In September, there was more misery as the entire Laxey area flooded in the storm. The railway's power station at Laxey diverting the water onto the Glen Road, causing serious destruction to the village. The resultant lawsuits nearly crippled the company. However, passenger numbers again rose steadily, allowing debts to be repaid and putting the railway on a firmer financial footing, until the spectre of war in 1939. If you look to your left, you can see the Great Laxey Mines Railway. Unusual in that it's the only railway on the entire island that has a tunnel, and we're just going over it. We joined here on the right by the tracks that come down from the Snaefell Mountain Railway as we approach Laxey. Well, I think you must be needing the rest now from my commentary, so I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of this video in peace. I'll join you in Douglas. Oh, you may notice changing weather on the last part of the journey. That's because my camera's battery ran out, and I had to return the following day to finish off that section on a different unit, hence the coupler making a cameo appearance. As we reach the Douglas terminus at Derby Castle, I'd like to thank you for lasting this long. And if you come this far, why not stay a little bit longer, and you can witness some amazing action at Ramsey, Laxey, and at Douglas. We stay at Douglas to witness Coach 22, an 1899 winter saloon, being the fourth and final one to be delivered from GF Mills, as it couples up to number 49, an 1893 open lightweight trailer. At Laxey we see leading unit number 32, being the 1906 cross-bench open carriage, being followed by an 1893 open lightweight carriage number 50, with the 1908 vintage goods van number 16 following behind. And it's back to Ramsey as we once again see the 1899 winter saloon number 22 arriving from Douglas. Out of view behind carriage 22 is number 51, an open lightweight trailer from 1893, and we'll see more of that in a second. Here is 51, running under gravity past the points to allow 22 to couple up for the final Douglas departure of the day for 1640. Same location with the same service, but this time it's the first item of rolling stock to be supplied to the railway by GF Mills, number 1, an 1893 unvestibuled saloon, working with the 1896 vintage open lightweight trailer, number 60. Here we see the ritual of the bow collector, to make sure that it's a trader, not a leader. The hand breaks off and number 60 gently rolls downhill. With the units now coupled and ready for service, it's all aboard for the final Ramsey departure of the day. We don't want to miss this one. I hope you've enjoyed this adventure. If you got this far, then a big thank you and very well done. Please check out the other videos on my channel of that brilliant time on the Isle of Man, visiting the other railway attractions as part of the Rail Trail Isle of Man Explorer Tour. If you've enjoyed this video and the history behind the Manx Electric Railway, drop a like and leave a comment. If you're not subscribed to my channel, then please hit that subscribe button, and a big thank you to those of you that have. I'm off to do the next video. I hope to catch up with you then, so until then, it's bye for now.